One of the things I've been arguing in videos galore, I guess, um, is that Western philosophy, the tradition, and the texts we retain are marked by political authoritarianism or totalitarianism at its worst, you know, consistently throughout. Partly, I suspect this is because anti authoritarian philosophers never made it past the bonfire, okay, themselves or their texts. And it's an interesting indictment of all of Western civilization and thought that its political thrust is authoritarian. I mean, but the political reality in the West is authoritarian, right? All this time, from the theocracies to the. Anyway, but whether or not the philosophers love political authority, want political authority, want to be personally subdued, and want everyone around them to capitulate to a very strong authority. All right, so maybe you think I exaggerate, and I guess we could come up with a couple of exceptions here and there. But let me start with Plato, the Republic of Plato, the first great, the first stab at political philosophy in the West. All right, maybe Confucius is, simultaneously or even earlier doing some similarly in the East. But the foundational document of Western political thought. It's often said that philosophy is a series of footnotes to Plato, to which my response is that's a devastating indictment of philosophy. True enough, though. And the Republic sets out all the basic issues and matters of political philosophy, like taxonomies of political systems, arguments for state legitimacy, arguments about which system we want, arguments about the nature of justice, all of that and more. The role of the arts, education in a ideal state, and everything. All aspects of political philosophy, except those maybe specifically opened by modernity's commitments or international trade or something like that, it's all in Plato. And this amazes me. Okay, this really amazes me. It shouldn't amaze me. A lot of things amaze me, I guess, though, in Western intellectual history and even in my own training. So I first read the Republic, I think, in Intro to Political Philosophy, a class I ended up teaching 30, 40 times, in 76 as an undergraduate. And yes, it's true, I was already an anarchist or whatever, like very anti-authoritarian. And this was presented as like this beautiful origin of our political life. And it advocated that the rulers should rule by lies. It advocated a definition of justice as keeping to your caste. And it described and emphasized, in the most brutal and disgusting terms, really, a caste system. First created by the lies. Like there's 3 different kinds of people, and you got to fall in one. And then reinforced by eugenics. We're going to breed these people together to reemphasize these 3 classes. Castes, I want to call them, really, because they have functions in a caste-y way. eugenics and infanticide, actually. Yes, unauthorized babies will be exposed. Okay. And an extreme system of censorship. I mean, he comes right up to the edge, and he does say this, and then he sort of takes it back and says, no art, period. And he's writing in the golden age of art, one of the greatest efflorescences of the arts that has ever occurred. And he's saying they all must be crushed because they will be subversive influences. Well, if that ain't totalitarianism, I don't know what is. And it has so many gross aspects. And then people going like, my professor at the University of Maryland's like, this is what we are. This is the origin of our, I have a friend who teaches intro just right out of the Republic. And I'm like, dude, are you worried about some of the totalitarian aspects of this? And there's 20 excuses or whatever. It's all ironic. Yeah. Okay. So I'd say like the Republic would be more plausible if he didn't mean anything in there. Okay. That's how heavy the irony is. And people want to make it that way. I mean, obviously, he's writing in a democracy, and he's completely opposed to the democracy. He couldn't be more explicit than that. That's obvious. Okay, so this is not liberalism, which I've been attacking and stuff like this. No, this is a lot more like the Soviet Union or whatever. A lot like the Soviet Union, actually. But, we want more, much, much more of that. Something like that. I don't know. It could be a right-wing junta, too, as long as they're destroying all the arts, lying nonstop. That's what Plato wants. That's what he portrays Socrates as advocating. All right, so this is what I want to do. I propose to do. I'm going to read some passages to try to prove some of these things, all right? All right, so what translation do I have here? I got a couple different translations going here for various reasons. Okay, this is the John Llewellyn Davies and David James Vaughan translation. I'm using this out of this anthology, Kahn's Political Philosophy, just because I taught it out of this book for millions of times, so it's all marked up and stuff like this. All right, let's talk about the noble lie. The noble lie. You might think Plato is dedicated above all to truth. I'm doing some Plato right now for one thing because Agnes Callard's book, Open Socrates, is the biggest philosophy book right now, getting reviewed everywhere and everything. She's a fascinating, wild, cool figure. All right. Open Socrates. All right. But is she aware of the political nightmare? She can hardly fail to be. So how do people deal with this? Okay. Callard's approach to Socrates is that he cares about nothing except the truth. Plato, like the truth, knowing the truth makes you good. That's a famous doctrine of Plato's. If you know the good, you will do the good. Right? Truth is absolutely central to every aspect of Plato's philosophy, and Callard finds that admirable. And he definitely recommends rule by lies. Now, ignorance makes you worse. Knowledge makes you good. Ignorance makes you evil. That's a Socratic position. So the idea of rulers lying nonstop to their people is specifically designed to make those people worse by the account of Plato himself. Maybe I won't read this. I'll try to give this is 414, marginal page 414, etc. Okay. And here's what we do. We're going to convince you. We're going to urge you. We're going to tell you, we, the knowledge people who run this place, the philosopher kings, are going to tell the others that there are three kinds of people, gold, silver, and bronze. Right. I mean, the anti-egalitarianism is breathtaking. Okay, it's just extreme. Right. The gold people are philosopher kings who are suited to rule. They got it in their head, they went to Harvard or whatever. The silver people are soldiers and security people, of course, run by the philosopher kings. And the bronze people, everyone else, the farmers, tradesmen, artisans, whatever's left. Diogenes of Sinope, maybe. All right, whoever's left. Everyone else. Because Diogenes of Sinope is not going to serve as your philosopher king. Sadly, he's going to speak the truth, right? Which is disqualifying in a philosopher king. For Plato, the lover of truth, the philosopher. Okay, so there's three kinds of people: gold, silver, and bronze. And his claim, he just says explicitly that's a lie. There are not three kinds of people. All right. It's a lie. Okay, but it will become true. Maybe I'm not going to read all these passages, I guess. Maybe I'll even try to list them in on the comments here below, or whatever the description. All right, so it's a lie to start with. There are not actually three different kinds of people. But guess what? We can make three kinds of people by breeding programs. When he introduces this several different times, he says, like, oh, you know how we breed dogs? Or you know how we breed cows? Maybe we can do the same thing with people, yeah, So, this caste system, gold, silver, bronze, is false now, although we're telling you it's true. And we expect you to buy this bullshit, actually. Because we control every aspect of your education, because we're in a totalitarian state, okay? We control every aspect of your education. So we can control what you believe. Because Socrates thinks people are malleable like this, so you just re-educate them to believe a bunch of bullshit, and they'll do what you want. He says that. Okay? All right, so now we're going to breed three castes. Or even much more refined. In other words, we're going to breed everything we need. We're going to breed cobblers. We're going to breed soldiers. We're going to breed seamstresses. We're going to breed philosophers. So we need to control who fucks whom. Totally. We'll be assigning you your partner. Furthermore, and here's where the noble lie comes in. Again, the noble lie of three metals in the souls or whatever, and then the noble lie that we are going to assign you randomly a partner. Okay? You can only fuck the people we tell you can fuck, but we're going to give it to you randomly. Like, it's just it's fair to everyone, because everyone just, like, it's drawing lots. First of all, the way they're doing this is going to be completely implausible, but he thinks they can control every aspect of your brain and make you believe anything. Like, it would take you a second to glance at that shit and go, this isn't random. What are you talking about? All right. But we've destroyed your brain, so you believe whatever we tell you, okay? It's called education in a totalitarian state. All right, so we're going to tell you that we're breeding you randomly, but we're actually assigning you partners in our gigantic eugenics program. And as he says over and over, I guess I'll find one of these. Unauthorized infants will be killed. They'll be abandoned or exposed, thrown into a cave or a well somewhere. And also, no one's going to realize what you're doing at all. Now, have you heard a grosser and more oppressive political position in your fucking life, dude? And we love this guy more than anything, dude. Everything comes from him. It's so beautiful. It's, he actually is a very good writer, unlike Aristotle or whatever, right? But that's almost all we can say for him, because there is no truth in this, and it's grotesquely evil politics in Plato's Republic. And it couldn't, I guess I end up saying things like this a lot. It couldn't be more obvious, right? I saw it the first time I read it. And anyone should see it every time they read it. Or, what are you reading? Because that's just what this is. Around, in book 4, around marginal page 435 or something like this, he defines justice. This is the first definition of justice in the Western tradition. Keeping to your place. Each person doing what they are best suited to, as defined by the philosopher kings. Each person restricting themselves to their assigned task. Each person restricting themselves to what they have been bred to do. That is justice, according to Plato. I'm not going to bother with the refutation. There could not be a less plausible theory of justice than that. And that's the fundamental, original theory of decay justice in the West. Lots of monstrous politics is going to look fairly mild after you look at Plato. Mussolini seems like Franco. These seem like mellow dudes, right? Trotsky and Mao. They got a lot more freedom for you than Plato does. Okay. Now, I guess the last aspect I want to emphasize here is total censorship. Total censorship. Like I say, he kind of goes back and forth between, we'll have a few things left here, a few songs left. There'll be hymns to the gods, as or martial music that will help us muster for the next war. Okay, not on Sparta, because I actually think Plato wants Sparta to come conquer Athens, maybe. The political vision of the Republic is far closer to Sparta than to Athens, of course, and everyone seeing this then would have known that immediately, or listening to Socrates say these things, if he did, to whatever extent he did. They would immediately say, oh yeah, you're a pro-Spartan, okay? Which is also pro-anti-democracy, pro-totalitarianism, and stuff like this. All right, so like I say, he's living in the very most, the greatest efflorescence of art, the first great efflorescence of art. and poetry. And he's living in a society where poetry has an amazing status. The poetry of Homer is like the basic cultural touchstone. Plato hates that, and he thinks we've got to get rid of the poetry and replace it with philosophy and lies. Okay. He thinks poems are lies, but he's pro-lie. Okay. So why does he want to get rid of Homer? I don't know exactly, but it's something like this. He says this is in book 10. Now we're on Grube's translation. Like a painter, this is 605b, just above B. Like a painter, a poet produces work that is inferior with respect to truth. Like a philosopher king, too. And that appeals to a part of the soul that's similarly inferior rather than to the best part. Because art appeals to your emotions. It manipulates, it gives you pleasure. And so it doesn't appeal to the best part of your soul, which is the rational part. Again, your rationality is conceived of as a separate thing or being in your head that needs to control the other things in your head. The tripartite soul is analogous to the tripartite polity and the tripartite universe. The best part of the soul that is similarly inferior rather than to the best part. So we were right not to admit him into a city that is to be well governed. We were right not to admit poets into our city. For he arouses, nourishes, and strengthens this part of the soul, and so destroys the rational one, in just the way that someone destroys the better sort of citizens when he strengthens the vicious ones and surrenders the city to him. Similarly, we'll say that an imitative poet puts a bad constitution in the soul of each individual by making images that are far removed from the truth, and by gratifying the irrational part, which cannot distinguish the large and the small, but believes that the same things are large at one time and small at another. Like that's just Socrates yip-yapping on ignorance that he hates. However, we haven't yet brought a more serious charge against imitation, namely that with very few rare exceptions, it's able to corrupt even decent people, for that's surely an altogether terrible thing. So this is, one way to regard this, Book 10 of the Republic, the first theory of art, right? Maybe the first theory of art, as mimetic craft, mimetic techne, imitation. Poetry is imitation, sculpture is imitation, painting is imitation. That's bad, and all of it must be eliminated. So, one thing to see immediately is that he's anti-Athens. Totally anti-Athens, man. Like, this is the golden era of art. It's the first democracy. He wants it all destroyed now, crushed, and controlled with in a police state, dude. A philosophy police state. All right, I'm having trouble thinking of a grosser political vision that has ever been articulated than the political vision of the Republic. West's first. And I've spent 50 years or whatever this is, being quite surprised that people pretend not to see this and just nod along. Well, if you nodded along to the Republic, you're a monster. Agnes, Callard. I don't know who you get on that one. All right, I don't know what comes next, man. I might do something similar on Hegel. Because it's the same thing. Hegel's a liberal, Hegel's pro-democracy. Have you read The Philosophy of Right? Oh my fucking God, what a totalitarian fucking monster. And I send you back to the videos I did on Philip Pettit's recent book, The State, which brings totalitarianism right to the present moment in academic philosophy, where it's right at home. It feels so good at Princeton. Peace, yo.